Hello and welcome to a concept video for a style of Space Station 13 video. If you like it, let me know so I feel motivated to make more. So here I am, deciding who I want to be for the upcoming round, and I picked none other than maintenance crawler. Looking at the jobs, I picked the only job that I could ever place someone with the name maintenance crawler as. The staff assistant. At first, I immediately want the license to dab. However, after thinking about it, I'm a staff assistant, I can dab anyway. So I switched to the super real sword that can totally kill people. Loading in, I glance at my round objectives and see that I have to protect Gnome Chompsky. Chompsky, a devious creature, and I was to protect him. So I immediately suit up, put on a balaclava that made me discreet, and fingerless gloves to match the balaclava. Then I grab a welder and fashion some armor, just in case things get dicey. Arriving to the head of personnel line, I know that unlike where I start the round off crawling through maintenance, Chompsky starts the round off crawling through the trash can. Or I guess it's also the lost and found. After spotting the clown, I form a plan. And that plan involves shoving the clown over and dabbing on them. Afterward, I see the captain open the door to security, so my staff assistant P-Brain decided to follow them in, resulting in me being stuck. However, just a few moments later, this dude spots Chompsky and wants to throw hands. I know it's only a matter of time before they get the door open and rip Chompsky from my cold dead hands, so I use the time to barricade myself in. Despite this, the janitor turned out to be the least of my worries. The real villain in this story was me. The real villain in this story is the chaplain standing right behind the janitor. After a brief standoff, the chaplain decided to ask a very crazy question. And for every crazy question, they warrant crazy consequences. At first, I'm taken aback. Did he really just say that? How can I joke this off? I know, he was clearly talking about a Nerf gun. Right? Fuck. After this, I start to speculate about what is about to go down. This whole thing could be a joke. Or is he that serious on stealing my Chompsky from me? Meanwhile, after narrowly escaping the head of security, they decide to mag dump their everything into the barricade that once kept me safe so that their door could be operable again. It wasn't very effective. The janitor then decided to make his attempt at stealing Chompsky, but I beat him up with my very real sword, and he crawled off to medbay. After going to the head of personnel line for reasons I'll explain in a second, I see that someone has a super cool wrestling belt, and I want it. Anyway, I came to the head of personnel line for fear I'd need access if I was to be pursued over Chompsky. To my surprise, I got the best thing one could hope for at the head of personnel line. Meanwhile, the chaplain from earlier is hovering above me, and I assume Hess waiting in line for access changes. After explaining to the hop that I don't have an ID, they got to work. After getting my super cool ID, I'm told to stay here by the guy behind me in line. Why? I don't know, he couldn't possibly be trying to find a way to challenge me to a duel. Right? Well, after thinking about it, at first I wanted to try and recruit them to help me steal the super cool belt, but then, after thinking about it more, I agreed to the terms and signed the paper. Since he was giving me a 5-minute head start, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed the first tool belt and toolbox I found, making my way toward mechanics. Along the way, I noticed the detective put a devious sticker on me. So me being me, I decided to do a little trolling. Since I had 5 whole minutes to kill, I decided to ask the mechanic for insulated gloves, instead of using the ID the hop blessed me with, and it was way harder to ask for insulated gloves without asking for insulated gloves than it looks, so I eventually gave up and just asked directly. After a period of questioning everything, I eventually get the gloves I need. After breaking into Eva to steal a spacesuit, I run into him. Just as the 5-minute grace period elapses. He draws his gun and starts chasing me down, so I start dodging and weaving. This leads us into a maintenance tunnel where I have home field advantage. I drag a welding tank between us and the one-person wide tunnel, knowing that it would buy me some time. I had to wait for him to drag it to his end of the tunnel, and then bolt. However, since I can't make up my mind, I end up circling back first thinking I can hide in the trees. Then I try and slip out and take the teleporter, but he sees me, which ends up with me narrowly dodging a bullet as I hop through. However, the chase ensues. I slip into the trash can and flush myself, which isn't very far from where he is, but it buys me a few seconds to try and lay a trap. I'm running out of escapes, and wondering how much longer I can keep barely escaping the detective's bullets without a barrier. Luckily he shoots a monkey, and I'm able to loop around and hide in a bush. Like 10 minutes later I'm crawling through maintenance, and I enter the engine room, and see the engine clanking around harder than the sound of a car without a muffler. But on my radio, I see the AI attempting to give callouts to my location. I give my staff assistant peanut gallery comment, which is advice that will start a meltdown. Later, after having not seen the chaplain in a literal 10 minutes, we meet again while I'm already in a different shoving match with someone else. In the panic, I dropped Chompsky to defend my life, and nobody but the other staff assistant noticed. We just kept playing cat and mouse. In a turn of luck, I managed to deflect 2 of the chaplain's bullets into himself, as the syndicate call out my sleeper agent response code, which kind of changes everything. Here, the chaplain manages to shoot me, but also hits a Securitron, and since he was already injured from shooting himself, it cuffed him down. Luckily, this conveniently placed contract I signed earlier was able to convince everyone around that this is what he asked for. I take him into the gym locker room, still making up my mind how I wanted to end him. I decided on a fair, naked fight to the death in the shower. I knew I'd win because he was injured from shooting himself earlier, while when he did shoot me I had armor on. I took away his methods of communication and then stripped him down while telling him that I was in fact evil now. And the contract didn't matter to me. After stripping him down and telling him about his impending deathmatch, I started placing barricades so he couldn't run away. Just then, the detective of all people broke in and saved the day. I plead, and ask him to remember the contract that I just admitted to the chaplain of not caring about, and it seemed to work out in my favor after being in custody for over 5 minutes. Also, the chaplain seemed more than thrilled for a deathmatch over a Gnome Chompsky no longer in my possession. Sadly for me, coming out of custody it was no longer my deathmatch to rig. After huffing some charcoal to heal the toxin damage I took from an extended period in security, and some cheap taunts, we were ready for our match. And at the sound of the bell we were off. My opponent had a strong start, but then tried being too fancy, and kind of stopped putting up a fight. One smackdown later, and it was clear I'd won. However, our rules said to the death, and we were going to honor it. Here I hit him with the move that sold him the start of the match when he missed it 4 times. After dabbing on my opponent, and ending this story arc, I had to think of an endgame. After committing some identity fraud and routing the station's budget to the head of security's bank account, I was ready to make my moves. I went to the space diner, and bought a super engine, capable of handling some super weapons. Then I threw it into the coolest looking pod there. Then, I went to the Syndicate outpost, and bought said super weapon. I also picked up a module that would make my pod invisible, so I could wait and plan out my assault. I suited up, stuck the gun on the pod, and headed toward escape. I activated the stealth system, and turned invisible apart from the trail of space dust I left while traveling through the stars. Now that I was at escape, it was time to go crazy. I turned on a signal jammer I bought earlier so that nobody could warn anyone about what I was doing. After a bit, this monkey who I wasn't even sure was a player started blasting at me. I had to be careful, a couple more shots from that and my pod would explode, leaving me as good as dead. I kept shooting the station with my super weapon, which was admittedly also super slow. After nailing some direct hits on crew members, I retreated to heal up my pod, and dodged the incoming shuttle. The security officer did not get that memo.
The escape shuttle has now arrived.
While repairing this pod shows up, and I think nothing of it until it turns and tries to blow me out of the sky. Space. Sky? I know I can't handle much more of this situation, so I leave. But I do see another pod, and I have another round of ammo.
The escape shuttle is en route.
After missing the shuttle, I hop on an emergency pod with a security officer who had no idea of the atrocities I had just committed. As I make the jump from the pod to the shuttle, someone gets smart and knocks me out, but I make it in anyway. For the next minute, I just run circles around the shuttle, admiring the chaos I caused, while avoiding being singled out. I may not have hijacked the emergency shuttle, but at least I made it to the end of the round before being blasted to death by that monkey. Anyway, this is my first time doing a big video like this. Let me know if I should make more. Stink fart gone.